Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear will make your jaw drop so hard you'll be crawling under the couch to find it. The internet is in absolute meltdown mode because apparently Yo Gotti just went full savage on GloRilla. Alive. O-N. Instagram. And when I say savage, I don't mean a cute little subtweet. No, I'm talking about a nuclear-level detonation of disrespect. Picture this. Thousands of fans watching in real time as Gotti allegedly leans into the mic, smirks, and drops a line so brutal, so career-ending, so fishy, that the comment section had to call the EPA for water contamination checks. And yes, I'm talking about that smell comment. Oh, you thought celebrity drama was messy before? Honey, this one has scales. Was it a drunken slip? A calculated move? Or the most public breakup since Kim K decided she was over it mid-season? We've got eyewitness accounts, leaked DMs, and a timeline so chaotic it makes reality TV look like Sesame Street. So buckle up, grab your popcorn, and maybe a bottle of Febreze, because this is the kind of scandal you can smell from a mile away. Let's rewind this chaos to where it all began, because if you think this whole Yo Gotti and GloRilla mess just erupted out of thin air, then you clearly haven't been paying attention to the slow-motion car crash that has been brewing behind the shiny lights and expensive filters. GloRilla was not just another artist on the CMG roster. She was the glittering crown jewel, the one Gotti seemed to present to the world like a prized possession every chance he got. We are talking about private jets with champagne in crystal, flutes, paparazzi photos that looked like staged magazine covers, and outfits so expensive you would need to sell both kidneys and maybe a piece of your soul to afford them, and the chemistry between them. Please, it was impossible to ignore. Every public appearance had people whispering. Every shared laugh was a tabloid headline, and every time Gotti looked at her during an interview, you could practically hear the collective gasp from the internet as they hit replay to analyze every blink and smirk. For months, it was like they were both playing a very well-curated game of public mystery, feeding just enough crumbs to keep everyone hooked, but never actually confirming anything. And that, my friends, is where the danger starts. Because a good mystery only stays fun until the plot twist turns ugly. And oh, did it turn ugly? According to a so-called insider who allegedly worked on the set of one of GloRilla's recent music videos, tensions had been brewing for weeks. It started with what they called creative disagreements, which in celebrity terms usually translates to someone refusing to be told no. There were whispers about missed meetings, last-minute cancellations, and Gotti being more absent than usual. The same man who once made a whole spectacle out of flying to her shows and standing front row suddenly had business commitments. That conveniently kept him elsewhere. Then came the spending. And not the fun kind. Rumors started swirling that Glo's taste for luxury had escalated from designer bags and diamond watches to entire shopping sprees that looked like she was outfitting a small country. Private shoppers from Paris, stylists flown in from Milan, and hotel bills that could bankrupt a medium-sized tech startup were becoming the norm. One anonymous friend swears they saw Gotti swipe his black card for a single night in a Dubai penthouse suite that cost more than most people's yearly salaries. And while that sounds glamorous on paper, it apparently became a point of contention behind closed doors. Money, power, and pride are a deadly trio in any relationship, whether personal or professional. And in this case, they were all starting to clash. Fast forward to last weekend, when the slow simmer boiled over. Live on Instagram in what will now go down in the unofficial Hall of Fame for public celebrity meltdowns. Thousands of fans tuned in expecting the usual playful banter or maybe a sneak peek of a new track. But instead, they got front row seats to what looked like a verbal car crash. Gotti, sitting there with that smug little half smile allegedly, dropped a comment so sharp it could cut glass, telling GloRilla in front of the entire internet that she stinks like fish. Now, was it meant literally, metaphorically, or just as a cheap shot? No one knows, But what we do know is that within seconds, the chat section went from heart emojis to all caps screaming. Some fans were in shock. Others were gleefully typing popcorn emojis, and the rest were trying to screenshot before the video vanished. It was chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos, and once the clip started circulating, there was no stopping it. Twitter detectives were suddenly forensic experts, dissecting the lighting, the audio quality, and even the expression on Glo's face when she heard it. Meanwhile, Instagram was a war zone of stan accounts, either defending her honor or dragging her name like it was open season. Of course, the blogs jumped on it instantly, with headlines ranging from "Yo Gotti humiliates GloRilla live" to "Is this the end of CMG's Golden Girl?" And as always, the sources close to the situation came crawling out of the woodwork with their own hot takes. One claimed that this wasn't the first time Gotti had made snide remarks about her behind the scenes, that this was just the first time it had slipped into the public eye. Another said that Glo had been privately complaining about feeling underappreciated and overworked, that while Gotti was busy playing music mogul and social butterfly, she was the one putting in endless hours in the studio with very little acknowledgement. Then there's the third camp, the conspiracy theorists, who swear this was all staged as part of a publicity stunt for some upcoming track or joint project. Because in the age of viral marketing, humiliation can apparently be rebranded as edgy content. But here's where it gets messy. Because if it was a stunt, Glo's reaction didn't look scripted. She wasn't laughing it off. She wasn't playing along. She looked stunned, like the kind of stun that comes from being blindsided in front of millions. And that is the moment the power dynamic shifted. You could feel it, even through a pixelated live stream. This wasn't just a snarky joke gone wrong. This was the unraveling of whatever carefully maintained balance they had. And once that balance is gone, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, Glo's team went radio silent. No statements, no clarifications, nothing. Her last Instagram story vanished. Her comment section started getting flooded with trolling fish memes and Gotti. Oh, he was suddenly unavailable for comment. Conveniently spotted at some high-end lounge in Miami, like nothing had happened. The contrast was brutal. One was in damage control mode. The other was seemingly above it all, sipping expensive liquor while the internet burned. And that, dear viewers, is where the questions start to multiply faster than the memes. Because if this was just a throwaway insult, why is the silence from both camps so deafening? And why are certain people suddenly deleting old photos and unfollowing accounts they've had for years? Something deeper is brewing here. And trust me, you're going to want to hear what comes next. Within hours of the clip making the rounds, it was everywhere. Not just in the usual gossip blogs, but on mainstream news tickers, morning talk shows, and even late-night comedy segments where the joke of the evening was the insult heard around the internet. The public was eating it up like it was the season finale of a show they had been binging for years, and suddenly everyone had an opinion, a theory, and in some cases a whole investigative thread complete with timestamps and blurry screenshots. Some swore they had noticed tension between GloRilla and Gotti weeks earlier, citing that one award show where they arrived separately and did not exchange so much as a glance on the red carpet. Others claimed they had spotted cryptic clues in her recent lyrics, lines that hinted at betrayal and disappointment, though of course nothing was directly confirmed. And then came the so-called leaked messages, allegedly between Glo and a close friend, detailing how Gotti had been pulling back support for her latest projects and funneling resources elsewhere. The word elsewhere quickly became the spark for a whole different rumor mill. Because in the world of celebrity scandal, elsewhere almost always translates to another person. And the name most frequently whispered in that space was none. Other than a certain model-turned-influencer who had been spotted in the same Miami lounge as Gotti that very night. One grainy phone video from across the room showed them laughing together, And that was all it took for social media to lose its collective mind. Meanwhile, Glow's camp was trying to hold the line, putting out a carefully worded statement about focusing on her music and her fans. But the silence on the actual insult was deafening, and fans are not stupid. If it were harmless banter, it would have been brushed off instantly. The fact that neither party would address it head-on was like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. Theories began to escalate into full-blown conspiracies. There were whispers about a power struggle inside CMG, about contracts being renegotiated in the shadows, about Gotti allegedly moving budget allocations away from Glow's marketing to favor another artist. One anonymous tipster claiming to be a former label employee told an underground blog that Glow's last 2 music videos had been scaled back from the original plans, citing a mysterious lack of funds despite the label's public image of limitless wealth. And if that were not enough to stir the pot, another anonymous source claimed they had overheard a heated argument between Glow and Gotti during a private industry event where she accused him of sabotaging her career as payback for refusing certain requests. Whether that is true or pure fabrication almost does not matter, because in the age of viral outrage, the rumor often travels faster than the truth, and by the time anyone denies it, the damage is done. The online reaction was relentless. Fans began compiling side-by-side comparisons of Glow's recent appearances to highlight what they claimed were signs of stress and exhaustion. Her once playful social media posts had become noticeably more guarded, her smiles shorter, her captions sharper. Some saw it as proof that she was hurting, others saw it as a calculated rebrand to take control of the narrative. Either way, the shift was impossible to ignore. Then came the calls for accountability, with hashtags demanding Gotti apologize publicly and others calling for Glow to leave CMG entirely. The pressure mounted as industry insiders began weighing in, some subtly, shading Gotti with vague tweets about loyalty, and others outright defending him as a businessman making tough decisions. It became a digital battlefield with fan bases clashing in comment sections and strangers arguing like they had personal stakes in the outcome. The situation escalated further when an unverified audio clip began circulating online, allegedly capturing Gotti in a private conversation saying that Glow had become too expensive to maintain, and that her attitude was getting in the way of business. Whether real or doctored, the clip ignited a fresh wave of outrage, and memes flooded every platform. Opportunistic YouTubers and podcasters seized on the chaos, churning out hour-long breakdowns of every detail, complete with dramatic music and speculative timelines. Meanwhile, Glow was spotted for the first time since the incident, exiting a recording studio in an oversized hoodie and sunglasses, ignoring reporters' shouted questions as her security escorted her to a waiting SUV. That brief sighting did nothing to calm the frenzy. If anything, it poured fuel on it, because the internet thrives on mystery, and every unanswered question became a hook for more speculation. People began to wonder if this was headed for legal territory. Could there be breach of contract claims? Would Glow attempt to buy herself out of CMG? Was there an NDA somewhere in the mix that was keeping her from speaking out? Industry gossip suggested lawyers were already involved, combing through agreements to see what leverage either side might have. The whole situation began to feel less like a petty celebrity spat and more like the opening moves of a high-stakes chess match, where every move is calculated and every public appearance is part of the strategy. And then, just as the frenzy seemed to reach its peak, an unexpected twist hit the feeds. A mysterious account posted what they claimed was a snippet of unreleased music from Glow, in which she appears to take direct shots at Gotti, calling out a fake king and a rotten crown while boasting that she will rise without his help. Within minutes, the snippet was everywhere, dissected line by fans convinced it was a diss track in the making. If true, it would mean Glow had decided to fight fire with fire, turning the humiliation into content and potentially flipping the narrative in her favor. But of course that move comes with risk. It's because once the battle goes public, there is no turning back. The story took an even darker turn when a separate leak surfaced, this time in the form of what appeared to be internal financial documents allegedly showing discrepancies in royalty payments owed to Glo over the past year. The figures, if accurate, suggested that hundreds of thousands of dollars had either been delayed or diverted, fueling accusations of financial sabotage. Her supporters seized on this as proof that the feud was about more than hurt feelings and public insults, framing it as a David versus Goliath struggle over creative control and fair compensation. The tension spilled into the real world when protest-style gatherings of fans appeared outside CMG-affiliated events holding homemade signs with slogans demanding justice for Glo and calling out perceived corruption in the industry. Video clips of these gatherings spread quickly, amplifying the sense that this was no longer a niche celebrity story but a full-blown cultural moment. On the flip side, Gotti's loyalists doubled down, flooding social media with posts defending his track record, pointing to the careers he had built and the opportunities he had created, and accusing Glo of ingratitude and opportunism. This ideological split created a chaotic ecosystem where every new development was instantly weaponized by both sides. Then, in what felt like a cinematic twist, a high-profile entertainment lawyer who had previously represented major artists announced in a cryptic tweet that they had been retained by a client wronged by her label, and that the public would soon see the truth. No names were mentioned, but everyone assumed the dots connected straight to GloRilla. The mere possibility of legal action against CMG sent ripples through the business community, with some predicting quiet settlements while others anticipated a very public courtroom battle that could drag on for months or even years, adding fuel to the speculation. Glo was spotted entering a luxury hotel in Los Angeles alongside two well-known producers, both of whom have a history of working with independent artists who successfully broke away from major label control. Photos of the meeting lit up the internet, with commentators arguing over whether this meant she was already plotting her next era outside of Gotti's influence. All the while, the original insult, the moment that sparked this entire chain reaction, remained untouched by any official explanation, leaving it to grow into a kind of urban legend that people will probably still be debating long after both artists have moved on. The absence of closure only made the narrative stronger, with each silence from either side feeling like another strategic move in a game that had no clear end in sight. Fans began creating elaborate timelines stretching from the earliest days of Glo's signing to the present scandal, highlighting every perceived slight, every questionable business decision, and every ambiguous social media post. The deeper people dug, the more they felt convinced that this falling out had been brewing for far longer than anyone realized. Industry gossip became increasingly wild, with stories of backstage confrontations, canceled photo shoots, and even sabotaged collaborations surfacing from unverified sources who claimed to have been in the room. Whether these stories were fact or fiction seemed almost irrelevant now, because the scandal had taken on a life of its own, existing somewhere between truth and myth, sustained by the endless appetite for drama. As the weeks passed, the situation showed no signs of dying down, and some began to suggest that both Glo and Gotti might be intentionally letting it play out for the publicity. A theory that divided the audience even further. Could this all have been a calculated stunt from the start, designed to generate maximum engagement ahead of new releases? And now, here we are, standing at the edge of what could be the biggest implosion in recent music history, watching two titans circle each other while the world leans in closer with every post, every rumor, every leak. The question is, where do you stand? Do you believe GloRilla is the fearless underdog finally breaking free from a system designed to control her? Or do you think Yo Gotti was right all along and this is nothing more than an ungrateful artist biting the hand that fed her? Are we witnessing the downfall of a promising career, or the birth of a legend who will rewrite the rules? One thing is for sure, this is far from over. The next move could flip the narrative completely, and you, better believe the second it happens, will be right here breaking it all down for you. So if you want the truth the industry doesn't want you to hear, make sure you smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe with notifications on. This storm is only getting bigger, and you do not want to be the last one to know when the next wave hits.